Hey Floss Tube, this is Brian. Welcome back. This is my 59th Floss Tube video, and I plan on sharing with you a couple of things that I've been working on this week. First of all, I want to welcome you. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you enjoy some of the things that I have to share with you. If you are coming back, welcome also, and thank you for coming back to watch my videos. I really appreciate it. It's been a good week. Weather-wise, it's still hot, of course. Last week I said we haven't had a lot of monsoon, and then the humidity came in on Monday. Monday was really a miserable day because it was really muggy. We haven't had any real heavy thunderstorms here. We've had a couple of storms, but nothing really bad. I think there have been storms in other parts of the valley. The thunderstorms, they can be kind of spotty, and we look forward to the great big one that'll kind of cool everything off. We haven't seen one of those yet. Anyway, yeah, it's been a great week, as I said, and I have a couple of things that I would like to show you. So if you'll just hold on a second, I'll be back. Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, I showed a couple of pieces that I had stitched and talked about them a little bit. And part of the reasons why I had them out is I was going through some of my stuff and trying to decide a little bit about whether or not I wanted to frame a couple of things. And I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. But I have had a couple of my pieces framed and I want to share them with you. The first one that I had framed is, let me turn it around, is my Verandas of South Battery. Yeah, so we just decided not to go with the mat, just a frame. And this is kind of a gold frame with a little bit of a kind of a reddish undertone, and it's kind of distressed in places, so it looks a little bit, what is that, shabby chic, is that what they call that? Anyway, and yeah, so I had this framed. I'm really happy with how this how this turned out. Things look so much better once they're stretched and in a frame. So there's my Verandas of South Battery. I stitched this, I finished it a couple of years ago, I think. I think it's been a couple of years now. This is a piece that I actually was working on for a very long time. I started over here and got most of this house stitched, I think, and then it sat for like 6 or 7 years without any work being done on it. And then I picked it up about 3 years ago and eventually finished it. This is one of those pieces that I never thought I would ever be able to stitch and complete because it was so big. But now it's framed. We're trying to decide where we're going to hang it. So there's that, and I have another piece that I framed that I'm going to show you also. Okay. The other piece that I had framed is yeah, I showed you both of these, a perfect setting. So when the framer saw this piece, he said, I know exactly what I want to do, and he pulled out, this is actually a double frame. There's this light blue frame that is kind of acting as a mat, and it's kind of distressed along the inside edge. And then there's this black frame along on the outside. And when he pulled that out, I just knew that this was absolutely perfect for this piece. And I just really love how this turned out. So yeah, I think the blue of the mat goes well with the sky, and then this just kind of finishes it off and kind of goes with the the shutters in the house. It kind of all pulls everything together. So this is another piece. I finished this, I think it'll be 4 years ago in October. No, it was December. So 3.5 years ago I finished this. And this is another piece that I started. I started over here in this corner, and it sat for a very long time until I actually picked it up and started stitching it again. And I never thought, it's 300 by 200 stitches, so 60,000 stitches total, completely full coverage. So yeah, I thought I would never finish it because it was so big and so complicated. In fact, when I took this in to be framed, there was a couple there, and she paints, and her husband was there, and I guess she had a couple of pieces that she wanted to have framed, and they really oohed and awed over my pieces. And the husband, he looked at that, and he looked at this, and he said to me, he said, you know, no offense, but you're crazy. Because he thought he could see and appreciate how much work it was to stitch this. And that really made me feel good that somebody would, a non-stitcher would appreciate what it took to stitch this. So anyway, like I said, I really like how this turned out. So we're trying to find a place for this one as well. Yeah, so we'll see where this ends up. But I'll go set this down. Okay, yeah, so that was great, and I'm like I say, I'm really happy with those, and we're kind of talking about where we're going to hang them up. So yeah, I have a shout out that I would like to do. I generally forget to. I see people that I want to shout out, and then I forget about it. And then by the time I get around to remembering, everybody knows about them. But I'm not sure that that this one is well known yet. This is a guy that made a video a couple weeks ago. So another male stitcher. His name is Scott, I believe, and his channel name is Chubby Nerd Stitches, I think. I'll put a link to it down below. And he's working on a piece of a salmon that looks really cool, and he also has an Instagram, and I've started following him on Instagram. So if you're looking for another male stitcher to follow, go ahead and check him out. I'm looking forward to seeing more videos from him. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what I want to stitch. And actually, this is something that I've been kind of working on for the past 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm not going to be able to start it right away, but I will be starting it soon. So if you listen to Fiber Talk and have been following Gary Parr and Vanna Pfeiffer, and they've started working on the Queen Sampler. And when I saw the Queen Sampler, I was really intrigued by it, and I thought, you know, that would be something that I would really like to stitch. It's a design that was originally designed by Darlene Osteen, and then Linda Vinson basically took Darlene's design and made some changes to it, and she's published a stitch guide that kind of details the changes that she made to the design. And Gary and Vanna have started working on it, and like I say, I've been kind of going back and forth about whether or not I wanted to stitch it, and I finally decided that I did. So I have ordered materials for it. I ordered the kit from Sassy Jacks, and it came in the mail, but half the floss colors are back ordered, so I can't start it yet. But I think as soon as I get all my floss, that I'm going to start working on this. But I have the fabric. This is the fabric that Linda suggested. 37 count Russian tea cakes. So there's my fabric, and I have about half of the floss and the beads. So I am really excited to start working on that. Watching Gary and Vanna start it has made me really want to stitch this and join in on the fun. I am not. There are only a couple of things about it that really intimidate me. Most of the specialty stitches, I'm not too worried about. But the middle queen's dress is done in detached buttonhole, and there's a whole bunch of spiral trellis stitches all over the place. Those stitches kind of scare me. Partly because I did something similar on a piece that I was working on a couple of years ago, and it didn't turn out very well for me. So we'll see how that goes. I was just going to the letters across the top. There's 2 bands of letters across the top of the sampler. I guess I'll insert a picture so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Or anyway, there's 2 bands of letters, and they're stitched in reversible cross stitch. And I looked at that and I thought, you know, I'm just going to stitch those letters. And then Gary and Vanna decided they were going to do theirs reversibly, so I think I'm going to have to as well. So I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. I've been looking at all the instructions and the diagrams and the stitches, and I'm getting really excited about stitching that. I just kind of waiting for the rest of my floss to come. I mean, I could start. I've got some colors here, but I don't want to be. I want to start at the top and just gradually work through it. I don't want to skip something and say, okay, I'll come back and stitch this when I have this color. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm just gonna put a stake in the ground and say when I get my material, I'm gonna start that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what I have been stitching this week. I have been working on the Winter Garden by the Drawn Thread, and I forgot to mention last week that if you want to join me in stitching these patterns, you can use the hashtag DrawnThreadGardenSal on Instagram. I'm following that hashtag. I know that Brenda, Handwork Maniac, started the Autumn Garden, I believe. Is that right, Brenda? And I think she's going to be working on it a little bit more this fall. But I'm working on the Winter Garden. This is my 2nd week working on it. And I've had a good experience with it. So, first of all, I'll insert a picture of what this looked like the last time you saw it. I am stitching this on the called for 32 count Smokey Pearl Belfast linen, and I'm stitching with the called for silks. So this is silk, and it is the first week that I worked on this was a little bit challenging for me because it's silk, and there's some places where you're stitching and you don't have a lot of stitches on the back where you can anchor your threads, and that has been a challenge for me. But this week I've been mostly doing cross stitch, and it has been really quite enjoyable. So this is what it looks like now. This fabric, this Smoky Pearl, it's kind of a grayish blue color, and my pictures that I've been taking during the week, it really plays with the white balance on my camera. So it's my daughter said to me last night, you know, this looks a lot different in person than what it looks like on Instagram. And that's just because this fabric color is just making it very hard for me to get a good, accurate picture of it. Plus I'm taking pictures late at night when I've got bad lighting, so that doesn't help. At any rate, this is what it looks like now. So I'll give you a little bit closer look. When I started this last week, I had some of this tree over here. This is a conifer. and I had some of these branches stitched. So I finished stitching the tree, and then I stitched the house. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to complete the house, but I finished it. I finished it last night. So this tree, I had somebody ask if that was, this tree was very difficult to stitch. It really wasn't. It's really easy to stitch, and it goes fast because it's not cross-stitch. The stitch, she calls it a fur stitch. The biggest challenge I had was all of there's like a direction to the stitch, and over here the stitches all point one direction, and you get over here and they point another direction towards the end of the branches. And when I got over here, because of the way I was stitching, I had to change the direction I was pointing, and so I had a couple of places where I had to restitch branches because I got confused as to which way I should be stitching. Other than that, it's really easy. And then the house, in addition to the house, there's a couple more plants. This is ivy climbing up the house. And this over here, it says it's heath. There's actually a little bit more heath to stitch over here outside of the house, but I didn't feel up to stitching that last night. So we'll finish, next time we work on this, we'll finish the heath and then start working on the other trees and plants that are on this side of the house. So yeah, I'll give you a little bit closer look at it. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. This house turned out really nice. I like the door that's red to match the chimney. And so it's been a lot of mindless stitching because there are a lot of white stitches in that house. And I've had a couple of people ask me on Instagram, say, your stitches look so perfect. Do you use a laying tool? And no, I don't use a laying tool. I have tried using a laying tool, and it doesn't seem to help. It doesn't seem to make things better for me. Now, that's not me saying that my stitches are perfect. A lot of times they're not, but I can't seem to make them any better if I use a laying tool, and it slows me down. So I just don't use it, and I deal with the fact that sometimes my stitches don't look good. But yeah. So I'm really happy with my progress, and I am ready to give this a little rest and wait for it to come back around again. It's been a great week. Okay, so I have hit the end of my rotation, and I mentioned this last week. It's time to start something. And last week I said, I hope that I can decide what I'm going to stitch, and I haven't decided yet. I have like 5 or 6 things that I would like to start, and I can't bring myself to start them all at once. So I have a pile, I have a list, and I guess this afternoon I'm going to actually decide. So I will give you a list of some of the pieces that I am considering starting. First of all, my wife is lobbying me to start Rapunzel. It's a design by Teresa Wentzler. She thinks that would be a good one to stitch for my second daughter's graduation. So that's a possibility. I would also like to start Queen Anne's Lace, which is a lavender and lace design that I really like. I've also got 101 Alphabets, which is Rosewood Manor. That's a piece that I really wanted to stitch when it came out. It's a whole bunch of alphabets and motifs though, so that's another one. I'm also considering, I haven't ever told you this, but Years ago, I started working on Rocky Point, which is a dimensions kit. A dimensions kit, it's the lighthouse, the dimensions lighthouse. I started that and ran into some problems with the way some of the half stitches were looking, and I was nervous about just pulling those stitches out because I was worried that I wouldn't have enough of the color. If I pulled them out, that I wouldn't have enough of the color to actually stitch it to actually finish the piece. So I am planning on restarting Rocky Point with converting all of the floss to DMC, and that has been sitting a long time. I would like to start that. I would like to stitch Medieval Town Mandala by Chatelaine. That is another one that I'd really like to stitch. And then, that I'd really like to start, I should say. And then looking at my houses that I've finished makes me want to stitch another big house. And that makes me think about stitching. I've showed them before the Marty Bell, one of the Marty Bell houses that I have. Either Miss Hathaway's Garden or Rocky Mountain Christmas. So that, yeah, I think that right now what I'm working on is heavily weighted towards samplers. So I'm leaning more towards starting something that's more of a picture than a sampler, just to kind of even things out. So that's kind of the list of what I'm considering. I guess this afternoon, as I'm going to actually sit down and commit to starting something. So if you want to see what I start before I do my video next week, you can follow me on Instagram. I am at blitstitch on Instagram. Otherwise, I guess you can tune in and watch my video next week and see what I have decided to do. As always, feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. You can also like this video and comment below. I would be glad to answer any questions that you have for me. And I hope that you have a great week, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.